Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our full council today, Thursday, the 29th of May. The first item on our agenda are declarations of interest. Do I have any, please? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. I have to declare a pecuniary interest in item 6, so will excuse myself for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 2 on our agenda is to consider any questions received under Standing Order 14. I have none. Item 3 is urgent items. I have none. So we move on to part 1. Item 4 on our agenda, the first of our planning applications, in the hands of Stella, please. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning, members. So the first item is item 4 on the agenda, which is for Park House. Sorry, I'm just going to put my camera on so you can see me. Hello, morning, members. So the application seeks the change of use from a residential care home into 2 one-bedroom and 2 two-bedroom self-contained flats for local need accommodation. And it also provides a one 4-bedroom apartment for short-term accommodation needs for staff working at the local hospital. The existing care home will be relocated to St Mary's Hospital as part of the new integrated care unit, which is currently under construction. The proposal includes limited external changes and the appearance of the building will not be significantly improved. However, the development will not result in any further harm and will therefore preserve the character and appearance of the conservation area and setting of nearby listed buildings. The proposal does not include any car parking or EV charging points, and there will only be 3 cycle parking spaces due to external space constraints. However, occupants will be able to park in a nearby street or car park and will be able to use the boundary railings to secure cycles and the public cycle parking at Parade Park. A planning condition is necessary to secure obscure glazing to 2-bedroom windows on the southern elevation serving flats 4 and 5 to prevent overlooking by neighbours to the south, and subject to planning conditions to secure details of external materials, operational and construction waste management plans, and water saving measures, the application is otherwise acceptable. It is therefore recommended that members approve the application for the reasons set out in the report, subject to the conditions set out at Appendix A, and that members delegate to the Chief Planning Officer any minor changes required to the conditions set out in Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stella. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, thank you. I've got nothing really to add to this, just noting, like Stella said, thank you, Stella, as well, noting the lack of parking, but I think that's a function of where the building is. But yeah, I would propose the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sims.
I don't think we need to discuss this much. I'll second the recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a proposer and seconder for approval of the application. All those in favour, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Stella. Item 5 on our agenda is the second of our planning applications for Briar Boatyard, which is in the hands of Sam, please. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, members. There we go, that should sort the echo. Good morning. The second application is for temporary change of use of the land at Briar's Boatyard for the siting of 2 snooze pods for a period of 3 years. Before we begin, just some updates. The proposed pods are now painted green rather than white as shown in the report. And just to note that some additional information has been provided justifying the business's need for the pods due to lack of housing and other accommodation on Briar. So in summary, the application seeks temporary permission for 2 snooze pods to house seasonal staff in association with the boatyard. The pods would provide 4 bed spaces and would be located in the yard north of the main building. The principle of temporary and seasonal staff accommodation is generally supported where there's a clear operational need. While the report does outline some uncertainty regarding the principle, some additional information has since been provided to support this. The general principle of seasonal accommodation is therefore supported. There are two material concerns regarding the application, the first of which is flood risk and drainage. The site is located within flood zone 3. The pods are classified themselves as highly vulnerable. This is as their residential and mobile structures. Some flood risk information has been provided, but this is not considered satisfactory to address the concerns. The Environment Agency have objected, and the lead local flood authority have requested further technical details which have not yet been provided. There are also some concerns regarding the pod's connections to the existing septic tank. No details of this have been provided. Concerns include the capacity of the tank. The second material concern is visual impact. The pods would be of a utilitarian design and would be visually and intrusively sited within the landscape. In addition, the residential use would introduce domestic clutter into the yard. It's noted that screening the pods wouldn't overcome this in principle concern. Just to note as well that 2 alternative sightings have been indicated by the applicant. However, no formal plans have been submitted. These sightings could potentially address some concerns within reason refusal 1, which is flooding and drainage. However, the pod's prominence would be increased by any change in sighting, and the change in sighting would not overcome the in-principle reason for refusal of visual and landscape harm. The recommendation is therefore to be refused, subject to the reasons set out in Appendix 1, Appendix A, sorry.
Thank you very much, Sam. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. So I think the applicants offered new information about the applicant has offered new information for the application itself. But in the view of officers, this still doesn't address the main reasons for refusal. Is that correct? Is that what you just said?
Apologies, I lost the first part of what you said there. Would you mind repeating for me?
So yeah, so the applicant has offered 2 new sites for the pods, but those sites still don't address the main reason for refusal. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the 2 reasons for refusal, the first one is flooding and drainage. It is possible that the revised sightings could address that reason for refusal. We would need information to demonstrate that. However, it wouldn't overcome and would actually exacerbate the second reason for refusal, which is utilitarian design and the prominent sighting. Just to note that no formal plans have actually been submitted, just indications of where pods could be sited.
Okay, so just indications. So you're not. Okay, so it's indications on your side as well, really, as well, that those sites wouldn't. But we're still left with the same designs. Okay, I'm just trying to get in my head, because there's been some talk about deferral and whether that actually is worthwhile, because even if we move to a new site and there's still the issue of harm of visual impact, then we're going to come to the same conclusion 2 months down the line or a month down the line, aren't we? So, but I'll leave it open to other members, if they want to discuss it before making a recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, thanks for the report. I think Councillor Marcus has kind of summed it up a bit there. There's quite a lot of doubt about this application. There's seems like the flood risk assessment isn't complete. Waiting for further information. The same with the the foul water solution to the septic tank. Doesn't seem to be all the information. There seems to also be some new information about how the pods will be dressed. Talk of timber cladding and a dome roof, I think, was mentioned as well. So it seems to me that there's quite a lot of uncertainty in this application. So I would propose that we defer it and get further information to make a considered decision.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
I more or less concur. But I'm just wondering, I mean, this is for up to 3 years. Now, it's for a business. Presumably, there's got to be another, so there would have to be another solution within that period, i.e. maybe they want to build something else. But I just suspect that in 3 years' time, if this goes through, there won't be a solution and they'll still be there.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, please.
Yes, having read the emails from our planning officer and Mr. Sibley yesterday, I think the sensible option is to defer so our planning officer can negotiate with the applicant and come back with a clearer option. So I would second Councillor Dean's proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick.
I think I'd just like to say that I think it would be reasonable to make a decision because these units are visually intrusive, in my opinion, supported by, I believe, a significant number of Briar residents, and therefore it seems to me quite pointless to defer because in the current state of the snooze pods, I really don't think they're acceptable in that particular sensitive environmental location, indeed anywhere on any of our islands with respect, unless they are properly screened as a similar smaller pods are on Tresco, and I can't see anywhere around that location where that would be possible. So I would just venture to say that I don't think we should defer. I think it would be fairer to the applicant to actually make a decision, but of course that's only my view.
Thank you. Councillor Roger, please.
Yeah, I would support the deferment as well for all the intricacies that's been talked about. But just to come back to Councillor Grottick, we've got these snooze pods all over this island at the moment, and also in a floodplain in Old Town. So I think we're on slightly tenuous ground here if we just dismiss this out of hand.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus.
Can I come back with that? I think it's different. The Old Town site is completely different to this site. The Old Town site is been designated for housing already. It's not visible from Tresco Channel. It's not entirely, it's totally different in terms of landscape and where it is situated. So I think conflating those issues is something that we shouldn't do. I think they're two separate, different issues. I think there are. I don't think that takes into account the information here as well, because it's, yeah, they're totally different sites. So I agree with Councillor Grottick. I think for ease of the applicant and for definite we can refuse. And am I right in thinking, Lisa, that the applicant gets a free go if we refuse to apply again? No, not anymore?
Not anymore, no. They've changed the fee regulations, so they wouldn't be entitled to a free go if they withdrew or if it was refused.
Okay, I'm still minded to refuse.
Thank you. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, another reason I think for deferral is a site visit. I'm led to believe by the applicant that there has been no site visit by a planning officer or planning officers, and we as members haven't had a site visit either, so because we didn't request one. So I'm not blaming anyone for that, but I think it would be useful for a site visit to see for ourselves what the visual impact may or may not be. So that's another reason for deferral.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, for me, I think I just want to look at the development, what we've got in the report, and I make my decision on the report and not an email that's come in at a later date that obviously is not in the report. So for me, sitting around this table, I'm just assessing what's in the paperwork, and that would be in line with refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
I think it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem, which isn't going to really work out, and frankly, they don't really look very nice. So I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Marcus and Councillor Grottick that it's fairer for the applicant to reject it at this stage.
Okay, thank you. But I do have a proposer and a seconder for deferral. Sorry, Lisa, would you like to come in, please? You're on mute, Lisa.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say that officers did visit the site. I have visited the site on numerous occasions, and the case officers at South Downs also visited the site. So just wanted to clarify that point.
Thank you very much. So I do have a proposer and a seconder for deferral. So I'm going to take that first. All those in favour of deferral, please. Yeah, so that's failed. Sorry.
No, you have to ask for those against.
Those against deferral?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any abstentions?
Abstentions? None. So that has failed. Sorry. Thank you. The proposal in front of us now is refusal. And do I have a proposer and seconder for that?
I'm happy to propose.
You're proposing?
Yeah.
And Councillor Marcus seconding. Thank you. All those in favour of refusal? 6. Any against refusal?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Any abstentions? No. So this application is refused. Thank you. Thank you, Sam, for presenting it. And we move on now to item 6 on our agenda, which is the last of our planning applications for the South West Water Pumping Station at Little Porth, which I believe is in your hands again, Stella. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. Morning again, members. So just by way of an update, there is one further pre-commencement condition to secure an updated construction site waste management plan, as a submitted plan requires some further detail. The application seeks the replacement of the existing Bishop and Wolf sewage pumping station with an improved facility. This will include a new screening plant to remove rags, paper, plastic and metals which are not appropriate to go through to the outfall at Morning Point as they do currently. The new station will also have improved noise attenuation and odour control facilities. The visible structure will be slightly larger than the existing building and will require a small extension onto land that forms part of the Bishop and Wolf Beer Garden. The external finish will be a mix of timber cladding and render. During the construction phase, a temporary compound at Parsons Green will be used for the storage of materials and equipment. There will also be a temporary parking suspension on Little Porth during construction hours, which are 8 AM till 6 PM Monday to Saturday. This will result in the temporary displacement of some 21 parking spaces for a likely period of up to 6 months. Concerns have been raised by the local highway authority and third parties regarding the parking suspension and knock-on effects on available street parking for residents and emergency access, especially as the town hall redevelopment has also necessitated a parking suspension for the duration of the construction period. By way of response, the applicant has advised that construction workers will be transferred to the site by minibus, or they will walk or cycle from their accommodation at Parting Carn Lane. Parking suspensions will be delineated using cones, which can be easily dismantled to provide emergency vehicle access. And other on-street parking is available within a 10-minute walk of the site. Paragraph 116 of the NPPF makes it clear that development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, which is a very high bar. In this case, the temporary parking suspension would result in an impact to neighbouring amenity and significant inconvenience to residents and local business owners, but it will not result in a significant highway safety issue. To reduce impacts, it has been suggested that work should be carried on outside the tourism season when pressure on the local highway network is at its greatest. It is therefore recommended that a requirement for a programme and timetable for implementation of works outside the tourism season be secured by the construction environmental management plan, which is condition C3. The proposal is otherwise considered to be acceptable in terms of its design and impacts upon heritage assets and landscape character, subject to planning conditions to secure details of materials and protect the stone wall along the eastern boundary. It is also acceptable in terms of the proposed ecological mitigation measures, and the indicated biodiversity net gain provision is realistic and achievable. Subject to other planning conditions to secure construction and operational management plans, noise mitigation measures, and details of external lighting, The proposal is also acceptable in terms of waste management, neighbouring amenities and dark skies. It is therefore recommended that members approve the application for the reasons set out in the report, subject to the conditions set out at Appendix A, and that members delegate to the Chief Planning Officer any minor changes required to those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Stella, again. Yeah, I support the application. I'm only concerned, and I'm glad that you explained the limits for refusal on highways grounds. I am concerned about the suspension of 21 parking spaces because there is nowhere close for them to go. So it's going to be difficult, and there's quite a lot of, I would think, vulnerable adults living in that area as well. So I just hope that senior managers of the council, which this is a non-planning thing, senior managers talk to other agencies to make sure that we can deliver services, and services can be delivered to people that are affected by this disruption if it does happen. With that, I would propose that we approve the application.
Thank you. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, I think it's clear that it needs to be done. And so I support the application. I mean, you know, we've talked about it and we'll talk about it more and more and more, I'm sure, about the issues with parking and, you know, the fact that this could happen at the same time as the restrictions are still around the town hall fills me with terror, to be honest. But the work's got to be done. And I understand we can't, if we pass the planning application, we can't say, can you please not start until 2026? I think it's just valid for 3 years from when we pass it, isn't it? So much as I would like them to not do it until the autumn of 2026, I don't know what the position is as far as their regulations go, whether they've got to get it done sooner. But yeah, I mean, I'll second the application, but it's with fear in my heart.
Thank you. Councillor Roger, please.
Yeah, you stole my thunder, Councillor Dean. Exact same sentiments at all. The parking side fills me with absolute dread. We're already in a crisis situation as far as that is concerned, and this will only add to it, and it will be chaos upon chaos. However, I understand it's not a reason to refuse the application. You mentioned about building outside the main holiday season. Is that written into the application? Because I can't see it. Or is that just a wish and a request?
Yeah, so the applicant has indicated that they're likely to carry out the works from this autumn. So it will be a 6-month period, basically, starting in this autumn and finishing in spring. We can't really sort of control that other than through the condition 3, which is for the construction and environmental management plan. It's very standard for us to ask for a programme of works as part of a construction environmental management plan. And we've just added the criteria that this has to be outside the tourism season. So whatever they give us, it needs to be, you know, their programme of work needs to be outside those critical 6 months when it's super busy.
That has to be outside of the main season, not...
Correct, yes.
Okay.
We wouldn't accept the provision of a construction environmental management plan that did not have that specific provision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
Yeah, and in line with everybody else, I understand the reason for the requirement. I agree with the reasons for the requirement. I'm just looking at figure 3 and figure 1, but figure 3 mainly. And I'm just wondering why to the right of where the new pumping station is going to be, there is such a large area of a parking restriction. And I just wonder whether there's any work to be done with the applicant to suggest that perhaps at times, if they can shrink that big area down, it would ease some of the parking constraints. Would be my only suggestion.
Yeah, so as I understand it, that area is needed for the, they're not using any larger than standard on-island vehicles for construction purposes. So they won't exceed the sort of the normal sizes of vehicles that already exist and are used on the island. But as I understand it, that's where they will need to sort of, possibly kind of set down and so on, or turn. So that's why the restriction is along that specific area. But we can certainly ask for it to be reduced as far as possible. But this is what we have before us as the suggested parking suspension area.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sims, please.
Well, clearly we very much need this to happen, but I'm just looking at it. It just doesn't seem to be that big a build to require that amount of disruption. I mean, it's much smaller than a house, so you can understand it with the town hall, you can understand it with the hospital or the integrated hub, but this just seems overkill for what is essentially a large garage. And hopefully, once it gets started, it can be reviewed and the wider impact along the whole of Littleport will be diminished, because it's a very big area for what is effectively a large garage.
Okay.
I appreciate the size of the structure appears, not dissimilar to a large garage. I think it's more the structure that you don't see. So there's significant below ground infrastructure that will all have to come out and be replaced. And obviously this isn't, this requires quite a lot of health and safety measures. Obviously it's not standard construction procedure. So I think that the shortest time they can actually complete the works is 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have a proposer and a seconder for the approval of this application, the two recommendations. All those in favour, please. That's carried, unanimous, thank you. Councillor Nixon, could you kindly let Councillor Blackwell back in? Thank you. We now move on to item 7 on our agenda, which is the increase in building control fees and charges in the hands of Lisa. Please, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So, as you may or may not be aware, the Council of the Isles of Scilly has, through its collaboration agreement, formally delegated the building control function to Cornwall Council, and that's been in place since 2018. And prior to that, building control was outsourced mainly to Cornwall Council through a tendering process. But as you'll note from the report, fees have not increased for the islands over the last 7 years, which they have regularly increased in Cornwall. And you'll note that there's now a simplified charging schedule for Scilly when compared to the previous fees and charges. And that does reflect the types of building and the types of projects that go on these islands. So you'll note that Appendix A, that there is a fee increase. It's not a set percentage increase. So fees do vary depending on the type of development. So for example, complying with the building regulations for a new dwelling is now considerably more complex than it was 7 years ago. And that's reflected in the higher percentage increase for that type of development, whereas it's a much smaller percentage increase for some of the more straightforward domestic extension type of applications. So the Cornwall Council have put together the simplified schedule and the increase in fees, which is before you to approve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sims, please.
I'm happy to propose the recommendation, but I just wanted to make a point that it's always a problem if you don't put fees and charges or anything up on a more broadly annual basis, because you get it 6 years down the line. It's a bit of a crunch for people. They don't necessarily budget for it, and it's better to do it incrementally than in one hit. And also, I think you end up making more money if you do it the other way.
Thank you for that. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, I'll second the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
In line with Councillor Sims' point, I just wonder whether we could perhaps formally add a percentage increase for inflation each year based on CPIH.
Okay. Thank you. Hopefully you'll take note of that, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have a proposer and seconder for the increases. All those in favour, please. That's carried, unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa. We now move on to item 8 on our agenda, which is the Capital and Properties Board Terms of Reference, in the hands of Nicola, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope you can hear me okay. This is a short report just updating the revised terms of reference for the Capital and Properties Board. Proposed changes were discussed by both Board and the Governance Committee. The Governance Committee actually reviewed it in April of 25. They expand the scope of the board to include not just focus on the council's property assets, but monitoring of the council's capital investment programme, because there are clear links and synergies between asset management and the costs of repair, maintenance, etc. So following feedback from the Governance Committee, the final terms of reference have been additionally amended to take account of the recommendations they made, which looked at the frequency of the meetings, so the suggestions is quarterly, and clarity as to who the board make recommendations to, which can either be the council or an officer. So the recommendations are on page 74 of the agenda pack, and it's to approve the terms of reference set out at Appendix A. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Dean, please. No. Councillor Marcus.
Yeah, this was discussed, had a good 20, 25 minutes and more discussing this at governance. I'll propose recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Dean.
I'll happily second the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour, please. It's carried, unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nicola, for your report. Item 9 on our agenda is the Chief Fire Officer recruitment, the appointment of a member panel in the hands of our Chief Executive. Thank you, Russell.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. As members are aware, our existing Chief Fire Officer left the authority in February, and obviously we're now looking to recruit. One of the reasons for the delay in the recruitment was that we are awaiting the outcome of the HMI CFRS inspection, which was published in March to confirm the direction of travel that we were going on. And obviously, the outcome of that inspection may have changed the way that we approach this recruitment. But I'm glad to say, and as you saw in the report in March, that we had a very, very good outcome from that inspection, and I think that proves that the direction of travel that we have taken of having a uniform Chief Fire Officer in that position on a temporary basis is working, and the improvements are coming through, and we're seeing a much improved service. And as I say, that is backed up not just by myself saying that, but by external inspectors. So we do want to move to replace the Chief Fire Officer on a part-time basis. We have been out during April to see expressions of interest from the market. We're now in a position to invite a number of the candidates over to the islands for more in-depth interviews, and we need a members panel set up to carry out that process. In the report, I said that we would be looking to start the panel commencing the week commencing the 16th of June, having had discussions with a couple of the candidates and availability and getting logistics onto the island. It's likely to be a week later than that. The only reason I'm putting that out there is, it's going to be 25th, 26th, 27th, somewhere around that. We're just finalising the date. But obviously, anybody who wants to be on the panel would need to be on island for that period. So over to you to elect a panel of 5. One will be the chair, so we're after 4 other nominations this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell. So as Russell said, it'll be the last week of June, sometime in that week. So if you are here and prepared to spend a full day on the interview panel, could you join me on that? I need 4 volunteers, please, if you could show if you would like to join that panel. Councillor Legg, thank you. Anybody else?
Is that set in stone that, because I'm away, I would like to be on the panel, but I'm away till the 10th of July?
If we can't find a panel from other members, we may need to look at it. I'm just worried that the initial application process was started in April, and that whether deferring into July we may lose potential candidates. There are other opportunities probably arising around the country. So there is a risk that if we go too far into the future that we've got a fairly exciting set of candidates at the moment. I would suggest far better and more than I originally thought. I thought if we got one or two it'd be good, but we had a few more than that. We will short this down to only bring in the ones we think appropriate over. But again, as I say, if we defer to the middle of July, it will increase the sort of challenge of finding them accommodation, etc., because obviously they'll have to be over for more than a day probably, and I prefer not to, but if that's the only option, we may have to look at that.
Thank you.
I'll keep my name out of it for the moment to see if you get enough.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick?
I'd be happy to support the recruitment process if colleagues supported that, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would put their hand up, please?
I'm just to say that I'm moving house that week, so I can't do the early part of the week, but I may have availability midweek.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to put the Vice Chairman's hand up for him anyway in his absence. So did you say you think you will be able to or you won't be able to, Councillor Peacock?
So just for clarification, I'm moving house on the 23rd, which is the Monday. So plainly, Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to be somewhat tied up, but hopefully a bit later in the week, I'll be a little bit freer.
We can accommodate that.
Yeah, I think we can accommodate that. It'd be difficult to get them here for a Monday anyway, so we'll try and make it Wednesday or Thursday of that week. Thank you to Councillor Peacock. So we have four councillors, sorry, Councillor Marcus.
There are two other members not here as well, Councillor Dorian Smith and Councillor Guy.
Sorry, could you say again?
There are two other members not here as well, Councillor Guy and Councillor Dorian Smith. Maybe they could be press ganged in.
Well, thank you for that. We have four potentially at the moment to join me on that panel, so we'll have to strong arm a reserve if we need to. So, councillors, you've got the names of those four. Would you please, could I have a proposer for those four? Councillor Roger, and a seconder, please. Councillor Marcus. All those in favour? It's carried and unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Russell, for the report. So we are waiting for our consultants to arrive. They're coming on the ship because unfortunately the flights are delayed today. So we're going to leave our corporate parenting strategy and the overview panel until they arrive and move on to the next item on our agenda for the moment, which is item 12, the external audit plan, which is in the hands of our Chief Executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is the annual plan that is brought to you by our external auditors as part of their statutory process on an annual basis of doing that audit work, which includes the audit of our statutory accounts and looking at our value for money. They have to submit a plan of their activity to those who are charged with the governance of the council, which is full council. So that is the report you have in front of you today, the external audit plan for 24-25. I know that's backward looking, but obviously external audit is looking back at the 24-25 year. It will look at the statutory accounts and whether there was value for money during that year. I will leave it at that and hand it over to colleagues from Grant Thornton, both Beth Bowers and David Bray, for you to take you through the report in detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell, and thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. Firstly, let me start by introducing myself. I'm Beth Bowers. I'm a director with Grant Thornton, and I am the key audit partner for the council for the 24-25 year of audit onwards. I've taken over the role from Barry Morris, who you would have previously engaged with at previous council meetings. Myself and David are here to present the plan for the 24-25 year end, which those members who have seen previous year's iterations will recognise that it looks very similar, as there have been no significant changes in our overall proposed approach to the audit in comparison with prior periods. I will let David talk through the detail of the report, and we're very happy to take any questions that members might have.
Thank you, Beth. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Some of you will probably remember me from previous years. So I'm based in Cornwall, based in St Agnes, but clearly not your St Agnes, unfortunately. So I'm the continuity from previous years. So as Russell said, this is the plan for the year ended 31st of March 2025. And external audit is naturally a retrospective exercise, and the accounts for the year ended 31st of March are due by the end of June this year. As you may recall, we've been appointed as the external auditors to council by Public Sector Audit Appointments Limited, and this is the second year of a 5-year contract with them. In terms of the audit approach, so I'll take the plan as read with your permission, Chair, but just wanted to highlight some key aspects of that. So on page 13 of the plan, we set out what the significant risks as far as the external audit are concerned. And in simple terms, those are the areas where we would focus most of our work. So there's a presumed risk of management override of controls, and that's not a criticism of the Council of the Isles of Scilly. That's a presumed risk at every audit, whether it's in the private sector or the public sector. And we'll also look at the valuation of land and buildings and the pension fund liability, because those are two of the most significant numbers within the council's financial statements. In terms of the context for our work, we set a materiality level, and at the planning stage we set that at 490,000, which is approximately 2.5% of your gross expenditure in the previous year. And we will revisit that on receipt of this year's accounts. We'll adjust that up or down if there's any significant movements in terms of the council's income and expenditure for the year. And on page 14, we also cover the significant risks as far as our value for money work is concerned. As Russell alluded in his introduction, the public sector's got a wider remit for external auditors. It covers both an opinion on the financial statements and also an assessment of your arrangements for delivering value for money. So we don't conclude whether or not the council delivered value for money. We form an assessment on your arrangements. As far as that's concerned, the primary area of focus, which was something that's familiar to all members, is the Ofsted review, although within that we note that the more recent reviews from Ofsted and the commentaries that they provided have shown very much a positive direction of travel, but that will clearly be a focus of our work, given that we assess that as being a significant weakness in the previous year. So that, Chair, is a very whistle-stop tour of the audit plan. I'd be more than happy to take any questions, whether it's on the plan itself or on the wider remit of external audit. And members will also be aware that nationally that there have been challenges within the sector in terms of accounts preparation and the subsequent audit. And in our plan, we comment briefly on the government's proposals as far as that's concerned, and in particular of the formation of what's called the local audit office, which will act as system leader and very much bring all aspects of the external audit process under the remit of one body. So that's it from me, Chair, but would be more than happy to take any questions or observations from members or officers.
Thank you, David. Councillor Nixon, please.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the report and the fact that it acknowledges the wider pressure on local government nationally, as well as direct pressures on the Council of the Isles of Scilly. The local context referenced in the report will be no surprise to anyone sitting around this table. It's right and proper that the auditors will focus on those areas, as well as the day-to-day operations of the council. I look forward to working with Grant Thornton over the coming months, and would hope that their final report in January will then come back and let us know that we are definitely heading in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peacock, please.
Yeah, I'm looking at page, where we go, page 34 with the fees. And I note that there's been a 14% increase in the fees from this year to last year. I presume it's an open marketplace for this, but my concern is that's quite significantly above inflation. And I think I remember a discussion last time round saying that there are limited numbers. I just want to make sure that the officers are happy that they're getting value for money.
From an officer perspective, I'll come back. I don't know whether the external auditors
wants to come in.
Yeah, will explain. But you know, over the last 4 or 5 years, this council has seen a significant increase in external audit fees. A lot of that is driven by the national sector in terms of the shortage of external audit resources, people, and firms that want to undertake this work. That has driven up the price. The complexity has also driven up the cost, and the level of challenge that external auditors now get from their governing body. So even our external auditors who govern us have their own body that governs them, are being stricter and stricter on their activity, and they have to ensure that they have compliance and can prove compliance. That has all sort of driven costs up very, very significantly. The government are very, very aware of that, and they are working at the moment on a project with the marketplace, the external auditors, to find a way of simplifying their work with a hope of reducing the cost and reducing the time scale, because the other thing that David did mention earlier is that they are running, the process is running in arrears of what it should do. There's had to be emergency backstop legislation put in place to try and address that. That's causing some councils major issues as well, because if you get a backstop position, technically you have a technical sort of qualification of your accounts, which can then lead to financial implications if you're in the investment or borrowing market. So the whole marketplace is challenging at the moment. I can only say from being the 151 officer, I'm disappointed at the level of fees that we now have to pay for external audit. I find it as a proportion of our costs, like some of our other costs, that it's probably one of, if not our largest annual revenue contract, and that just does not feel that that is the right place to be. But it's being tendered for nationally, and as I say, the government are aware that the costs have increased. There is some help that is being put in through an annual grant, but it goes nowhere near to paying the full cost of this. I'm sure Beth will also have a comment to make.
Thank you, Russell. Beth, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to add a bit of additional context to Russell's comments, in that in the previous PSAA contract, external audit fees had reached an all-time low and were at a point that they were non-sustainable based on the level of work that was required to complete an audit. So the increase is readdressing that balance. And absolutely, I agree with the member's comment that the fee has increased in line with a greater value than inflation. If you look at the detailed table within the report itself, you will see that a good example of what can drive this is, for example, the ISA 315 fee. Last year, that fee was not built into the scale fee, but in the current year, that has been built in. There are also other elements that PSAA are aware of that are upcoming, and when they are able to build those into a scale fee, they will do so in order to provide the organisation with more certainty over the overall level of fee. Members who've been on the council for a while may recognise that over the last few years, a lot of council's audit findings and auditors' annual reports will detail scale fee and then a number of separate fee variations that are to be submitted to public sector audit appointments, who are the body who appoint us as auditors and set our fee levels. For additional payment as a result of either additional work or work that is standard and known, in the case of ISA 315 as an example there, or this year the implementation of IFRS 16. But sometimes PSAA are unable to include that within the scale fee due to purely timings. Where they can, it saves a lot of time on a number of levels. It gives you as the council the certainty, but it also prevents PSAA from having to go through the variation review and approvals process. which then in turn will reduce their workload on their side, and that will then hopefully enable larger rebates to be provided to each organisation, which they do on an annual basis. They assess the level of fees that have been received through their levy, and then they pass that out to other organisations. So whilst I completely understand and appreciate the question, I wanted to add that additional context so that you were aware that we came from a place where fees were unsustainable before we got to this latest contract, which started last year in the 23-24 financial year.
Thank you, Beth. I think you wanted to come back,
Yeah,
Councillor Peacock.
Another question, Beth. Would we anticipate seeing a significant, another sort of 15-ish% increase next year, or would you expect it to level off?
I'm afraid I don't have the detail of that, given PSAA as an independent body from us set the fees for us. They consider all aspects, including inflation and any additional work. So they will not raise fees where it is not deemed appropriate to raise them. So there is always an explanation and a reason, and the council are on an annual basis provided with a breakdown of their fee, including any elements that have been subsumed into the scale fee. So that should help to provide some context where there are larger uplifts.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Chief Executive, please.
Yeah, I'll come in as well on that one. I think I did touch on it earlier. I don't foresee the fee, the direction of travel and fees changing if the workload that the external auditors are asked to carry out continues at the level, which is why I think central government are working on the project to see whether there is a way of streamlining the process for the accounts of local authorities and therefore reducing the audit burden. But until that is done, the level of activity that is needed, I foresee that the fee will continue going upwards and probably will continue to be pushing at or beyond inflation on an annual basis, because the accounting regulations which we're under, which are the same accounting regulations as pretty much the whole world is under in terms of the international accounting regulations, are becoming more and more onerous as we go by year.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Well, it is what it is, really. It seems an awful lot to me, but I mean, I'm happy to make the proposal. I don't think we've got any alternative. I think a number that springs to mind, this is from 12 years ago now. I think the first time was £36,000, so it's gone up by a factor of 5 in 12 years, which is quite alarming.
Thank you. Did you say you were proposing the recommendation?
Yes, I propose. I don't see. Well, yeah,
thank you
for what it is. Yeah, I'll propose a recommendation.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Nixon. All those in favour? It's carried, unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Russell and Beth and David, for your report. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
We move on now to item 13 on our agenda, which is the Housing Service Annual Complaints and Service Improvement Report, which is in the hands of our Director of Place, Nicola. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is something new. In 2023, new regulations were introduced that require social landlords, such as ourselves, to comply with new statutory code to follow in relation to dealing with social housing complaints. Compliance with that code is a statutory requirement, and the Housing Ombudsman monitors compliance. So to comply with that code, the Council must produce an annual complaints and improvement report, and it's that we're bringing to Council today. So this is our compliance report. The compliance requires us to do what's called a self-assessment against the National Code, and that's attached to Appendix A. So within this report, I've looked at a review of the complaints received and the learning we've had from that, and the consideration of any changes that we're required to make to our Council's feedback policy in light of that self-assessment, as I say, set out Appendix A. So it's about being proportionate, isn't it? So we've got to do a report. The Ombudsman deals with all sorts of sizes of registered providers, including ourselves as a social landlord. So the one complaint we had for the year was received, and it went through a couple of stages of our complaints process. And what the Ombudsman's looking at is, do you resolve your issues locally? And that we did. In that case, we were able to resolve it at the end of stage 2. And whilst there was a partial upholding of that complaint in relation to delays in dealing with emails, we've looked at our learning from that, and we've got a better system in place to make sure they can be tracked, because you've got part-time staff, full-time staff, making sure we know which emails have been dealt with and which haven't, and we've put a new system in place. So we had one complaint and we've taken some learning from that. So I make that point in the report. And secondly, in terms of how we deal with how to handle complaints that now have to record with this new policy, you'll see Appendix A, I've identified in amber those issues that I think probably need beefing up in our existing feedback policy. To make it simpler, I've summarised those at Appendix B, and I think that's some work that we now need to do, which is to incorporate those statutory requirements within the housing processes into the council's wider complaints policy. Otherwise, we'd have to have 2 complaints policies, and it just seems a little bit cumbersome. You'd have one for housing, one for the council. It's probably better for the customer to combine that into a single policy. So there are 3 recommendations on page 187 of the agenda pack. There is a typo in recommendation 2. It should firstly say that members approve the suggested changes to the council's using and processing feedback policy, our complaints policy, in accordance with the self-assessment for the complaint handling code, Appendix A, that's the full self-assessment, and summarised in Appendix B. And what I think, just for clarity for the Ombudsman, because this is a new process, and just for completeness, I would like to suggest a further recommendation 4, that members approve the annual self-assessment for complaint handling for 2023-24 as set out in Appendix A. So it's just really clear that the council have approved that, as well as the complaints and improvement report. So just because it's a new process, I just think I'd rather do belts and braces on that. So if possible, I'd like to add that further recommendation, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola. Councillor Dean, please.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola. It's a lot of work from one complaint, really, isn't it? But it's work that needed to be done, I think. So it's yeah, it's a lot of words, but it's basically just bringing everything into line, bringing the procedures into line with the rest of, just fitting it all in. So I'm happy to propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I just got a quick just note on page 215 of the pack, points 95 to 97. It talks about a member responsible for complaints, a member of the governing body or equivalent. In the table it says community relations officer, but I'm wondering whether that should be an actual member, because it talks about disseminating volume and categories and something like that. I wonder if there needs to be a member involvement there.
I think in the policy, what I'd like to do is define who the complaints officer is, and that was previously in the corporate core. And then for housing, certainly it will be the member responsible for complaints will be the lead member for housing. So that will be, in this instance, Tim at the moment. So perhaps in the definitions for the policy, it might be worth adding those in. It's a good point.
Okay, and then, but that means that that member will be responsible for all complaints? Because that's what we're saying, isn't it? I mean, and that's going to be my other question. Do we need another recommendation that says we're combining housing complaints with the complaints policy for the council?
So in effect, the recommendation is that, because we're adding the housing complaints into the existing user feedback policy. So we are doing that by implication when we look at recommendation 3. The responsibility for housing includes complaints as well as all housing services. So the officer deals with all corporate complaints as well as housing complaints. So they're the lead officer, if you like, for the council. But the lead member will be service specific.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Legg, please.
So do we have a policy on how long we should take to respond to emails more broadly.
So I don't know if Joe Evans has brought that policy to you yet, but there is a service standards policy that each service has been working on. They should now be on our website. So in terms of email responses, it depends on the service. So each service has come up with what's appropriate for them. I think in reality, there'll be an expectation that that should be at least acknowledged within 2 or 3 working days and responded to in full within 15 working days. But we need to work with services to make sure that's realistic. So Russell, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've got some service standards that are either due to come to council or have already been to council that are service specific, and it goes across all services where everyone's looked at the general standard for the council as a whole, but the service specific ones. And if not, we'll perhaps bring that when we bring the service plans.
Chief Executive, please.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look, but we did bring the customer service charter to full council in the last couple of, well, I say the last couple, it's probably 4 or 5 months ago now.
It sounds familiar.
So it has been here, but I would have to go back and look at the report to see whether it has specifically set those out. If it didn't, then we can, as Nicola has suggested, we can include that in the service planning going forward, as I say, but I can't, without pulling up the report, but we have brought the customer charter to members in the last, say, 6 months.
And would officers consider it too onerous to consider adding this to the performance monitoring? Like the number of queries we get that we take too long to respond to. I think it would be too much to ask them to keep track of how many in total, perhaps, but any that we take too long to respond to, we need to know how many that is.
Yeah, I think that's probably a worthwhile request. I think you have previously requested that we certainly bring the formal complaints into the performance monitoring report, which we are doing, and we can certainly look to bring some more general correspondence. I'm just wary that we will need to ensure that we record that data around the council, and that creates an overhead in certain places. And as you know, resources are thin in certain places, but we can certainly review and see whether there is a way of making that happen, as long as it is a slick process.
Yeah, I'd agree that it should only be done if it doesn't cause more delays elsewhere. Yeah, it'd be ironic.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just clear up one thing, Nicola? If a complaint came in about housing, you said the lead member of housing would be called in. Is that the same for any complaint? Say, if a complaint came in about adult social care, would that? No.
No, what I'm saying is that what we do with our lead member is, like across all lead member roles, we meet regularly. So if there are any complaints that have come in, we'll raise that. We won't go into details because obviously there's confidentiality and GDPR requirements. But what's important from complaints is that, one, we encourage them because it's good to have feedback, and secondly, that we learn from them. So I think that's the discussion that we focus on with our lead member. Hopefully Tim will agree, is that what do we learn from this feedback? That's the most important thing, and that's where, you know, we'll bounce those ideas off our lead member to see whether we can improve services.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus, please.
Okay, so do we need to change those boxes in 9.5 and 9.6, where it says community relations officer? Because I'm not sure whether we have a community relations officer. You said they were, so, and then you're saying it's directorate specific. I just want to make sure if we're approving something, we're approving the right thing.
Yeah, what I would suggest is when I've done the update in the policy, it will bring that as a part 2 for information, because I think there's quite a lot in that. If you look at Appendix B, there's a lot in that needs incorporating, and I think the danger might be is it all gets a bit muddled. Put some definitions in, do the new policy, clean it up. The reason why I've had to do it at pace is because we're due to do a response by the 4th of June, which is very soon. So I would have liked the new policy in front of you today. But if I bring that back to the next meeting or July meeting with those changes in it for information, then you can just double check against all those requirements in the boxes that you're happy. The Ombudsman will be doing the same as well, just checking we've covered everything off. So I think there's two things here. One is making sure we've include everything required in the scope, and two is making sure those definitions are nice and clear. But there's a bit of work to do on that policy to make it into a single item. But I think it would be useful to bring that back, even if it's just as a part 2 item.
Thank you very much. So, sorry, Chief Executive.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look, and the customer service charter was received at full council and approved 3rd of October 2024, and it clearly sets out our targets for dealing with all correspondence with the public. I'm not going to read them out, but they're there if anyone wants to look at the report and the charter that you did approve in October.
Thank you very much. So, members, you've got 4 recommendations in front of you, 3 that are set out in writing with the change that the Complaint Handling Code is Appendix A and summarised in Appendix B of this report, and the 4th recommendation that Nicola has set out for you. So could I please have a proposer for those 4 recommendations? Councillor Dean, seconded Councillor Legg. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you very much. And Nicola, thank you very much for your report. Members, we've come to the end of business that we can deal with at this moment. We are still waiting for our consultants who are hopefully going to come off the boat any moment. So we will have a short break and resume this meeting when our consultants arrive. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody, once again, and welcome to the resumption of our full council meeting. I'd like to welcome our consultants. I hope your baptism on the ship was not too bad this morning. You look as though you're in one piece, which is a good thing. Thank you. And I'd also like to welcome our pupils from Five Islands Academy and their teacher this morning as well. I will now hand over to this item on our agenda, which is item 10, our Care Ready Corporate Parenting Strategy, which is in the hands of our Director of Children's Services, Anne. Thank you, Anne.
No, thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much to everybody for your patience today. Catherine and Andy, who I'll introduce in a minute, were due to fly over, and as our Chair has just said, they've literally just come off the boat. So I think a little bit green because it was a bit of a choppy journey. So I'm really grateful to you both. Thank you. Members, in front of you is the introduction of the corporate parenting strategy for these islands. It's been a really humbling piece of work to commission on behalf of the children and families on Scilly. We're really pleased. This is a key action point from our Ofsted improvement plan, and a new thing for the islands, really. I'm not going to talk too much about it. You've all had the strategy itself. I am conscious that it's a weighty document with an outcome-focused implementation plan. But just to kind of help understand the formulation, we were fortunate enough that the Department for Education sponsored some financially for us to have the capacity to bring in well-known consultants across the country that know this area of the business like the back of their hand, really, and do lots of improvement really successfully across the country. So this is a sponsored piece of work. We're really grateful for DFE being able to do that. We wouldn't have been able to deliver it in the context of our current resources. So without any further ado, I'm just going to hand over and introduce Andy. I'll let you introduce yourself, and Catherine, thank you.
Okay, it's great to be here and to see you all. As has already been referred to, we had a very eventful trip over here, but we're very glad to be here and to acknowledge and celebrate lots of great work around corporate parenting that we've been involved with since early March. Just to say a bit about myself very quickly and said a few things. So my background is in children's social work and service and practice improvement, particularly where councils are having certain struggles following an Ofsted inspection. So I've done quite a lot of work for the DFE and the Local Government Association around that. So Catherine, you say a few words.
Hi, yes, I'm Catherine Smith, and I've been working in children's services since 2003, mainly as a policy officer, developing policies and strategies, and then latterly as a consultant since 2012. Supporting local authorities to improve, developing their policies and strategies across children's services. And can we just say hello to our young people that have been here this morning, who've been involved in some of the consultation that we've done over the last couple of months. So thank you for coming along.
Okay, if I can sort of take you through a few slides. We're going to move fairly quickly through this because we actually want to encourage a good, healthy debate and discussion and give you an opportunity to ask any questions. What I did want to say, actually, in terms of your role as elected members, there is nothing probably more important than corporate parenting in terms of meeting and promoting the needs and well-being of the most vulnerable children and young people on the Isles of Scilly. And I don't say that in a threatening way, I say that in a strength-based way. There is some great opportunities here on the Isles of Scilly to make a difference around corporate parenting and being care ready. Just a bit about context. It's already been referred to around Ofsted. Ofsted visited and did their inspection and found that there were significant difficulties around the fact that there was no corporate parenting strategy in place on the islands, and there was not a corporate parenting board, despite there being statutory requirements to actually deliver that. So there is that context of the need to meet the requirements that Ofsted have put down. But actually, the more important bit for us really it is the right thing to do for children and young people on the Isles of Scilly in terms of developing corporate parenting arrangements. As already been said, we started our work at pace in March, and we finished our last focus group last week. So next one. Okay, just very briefly, this is just a bit about the work that we actually agreed to do alongside colleagues within or on the Isles of Scilly. We had one-to-one meetings. We had a variety of focus groups with different stakeholders. I think what our experience was we were pushing at an open door. I think it felt helpful and constructive for people to come along, to contribute and to be committed really around the whole corporate parenting agenda. And I think that's a great strength on the Isles of Scilly that need to be built on in terms of what comes on after, in terms of the implementation of the strategy. I think the highlight for both of us was the work with the children and young people is absolutely brilliant, and you've got some great young people on the island who definitely want to be part of the solution in terms of corporate parenting, and are a great asset to you really, and they're a real credit as well in terms of coming up with views, ideas and suggestions about how things could be made better for young people going forward. So that's a great strength, and I having worked in lots of other councils where that isn't always the case, you do definitely need to hold on to that and embrace that and to value that going forward. Okay, if we go on to the next one. So just getting the basics right, this is just a slide on what is corporate parenting, so I guess that we're all on the same page. The first killer point, the key point really, is the collective responsibility of the local authority, including elected members, to provide care and support to children who are looked after or children leaving care, underpinned by some of the legal and statutory responsibilities that I referred to in the last slides. And councillors have a leading role to ensure that the council collectively acts as an effective corporate parent to different groups of children who are looked after, in order to make the most difference to improve outcomes for those young people. And I guess the key measuring stick that's used, which is a really good one actually, the care and support that's offered to those groups of young people, would it be good enough for my own child? That is the key measure, I think, to be applied in terms of looking at quality of care and support. And all about impact and all about outcomes and making a difference to those children. The 7 corporate parent principles are sort of enshrined in guidance and legislation. They're at the heart of what good corporate parenting looks like, particularly around the engagement of different partners and the engagement of children and young people. So we'll move on to the next slide.
Yes, so the corporate parenting principles are actually in the Children and Social Work Act 2017, and all local authorities. Yeah, so it's in the Children and Social Work Act 2017. All local authorities are required to deliver those principles and deliver to those principles. So we've just set them out here as almost a promise or pledge to young people. We'll act in the best interests in promoting physical, mental health and well-being, encouraging children and young people to express their views. And actually children and young people are very keen to have their views heard and to be heard by the council here. So these are the 7 principles set out. I'm not going to go through all of them for you because I think it's all included in your pack anyway. So these are some of the messages from children and young people. So we asked them 4 questions, and when we met with them in the focus groups, they were very keen to talk to us about what it's like to be a child living on the Isles of Scilly. And we asked them what a caring and child-friendly community would look like. And you can see the bigger words are the words that they said the most. It's kind, it's a friendly place, it's nice, it's safe. And these are the things that they're really reflected about where they live. When we asked them about children in care, so if a friend could no longer live with their parents because of issues at home, we actually had a few young people who said they can come and live with us. And that showed us really the level of empathy that is in your children on the Isles of Scilly. And it's a real credit to the islands that children feel that way, that they want to support other children and young people and would quite happily have them come and live with them. So when a young person then leaves care, we ask the young people what support they might need. And you can see they would need help. But finding jobs, finding advice, money support, education, and really supporting them with their dreams and aspirations as older young people. So the statutory definition of a care leaver relates to those children who are 18 plus. So these are the 18 to 25-year-olds who stay in education or who are disabled. So a young person who's in care, who is also in full-time education or disabled, the local authority has a duty to support them until the age of 25. So we also spoke to some older young people as well about their thoughts and their wishes and feelings surrounding older young people. And they spoke to us a lot about travel, transport and the costs of that. So they were talking about going to the mainland and coming back to the island. All of them, very interestingly, said that they see their future on the Isles of Scilly as well. So they don't see themselves as going away from the islands and never coming back. They all see themselves as coming back here and living out their futures here. The last question that we asked young people was around how the council and other services could better respond to the wishes and feelings of young people. So this is how you can understand what children and young people are saying and what their views are about life on the islands, and then how we feed back. So one of those mechanisms is, having young people to come and hear issues being discussed at full council. Other things that young people said was around at the school, people could come to the school, come and talk to us, come and tell us, come and ask us. So there is an open door there for yourselves as members as well to find out more from children and young people about how they see life on the islands and how you can feed back to them about your decisions and the decisions that are taken here. So the core elements of the proposed strategy, so the strategy that you've got in front of you, we've included a shared vision of what corporate parenting, what care readiness would look like on the islands. So of course, because there aren't any looked after children currently, we wanted to show what care readiness would look like. We included the values and behaviours that support that vision. We talked about youth participation and engagement, which is the Children's Pledge. Developing an Islands Council for Youth and Youth Hub to influence and hold the council to account for the delivery of the strategy as well. So the Corporate Parenting Board, we've called it the Overview Panel, the Islands That Care, will require membership for children and young people so that they can actively be involved in some of that decision making. And the strategy also outlines how we can improve communication and engagement with partners across the system, and talking about learning and development. So learning and development for yourselves as members, and for staff and for partners, so you have that joint view about what corporate parenting actually looks like. I think this one's you.
Okay. Okay, so we've I guess working on the basis that less is more, because corporate parenting can potentially do your head in terms of some of the complexities. We came up with this full notion of, I guess, 4 priority areas, and we called it the 4 Ps, to try and begin to put a bit more meat on the bones around what you need to be thinking about, what you need to be doing in terms of implementing the strategy. There's a reoccurring theme here, isn't there? Participation. We've talked a lot about that, and the value and the importance of involving children and young people in some of the key decision makings, and what happens afterwards. Because in terms of this strategy being signed off, because we've talked quite a bit in some detail about what the local offer should be to children and young people, but there's still work to be done alongside children and young people and other partners to put a bit more meat on the bones of that. We think you could be aspirational. We think you should be looking at young people champions, ambassadors for young people who could work alongside and add some real value to the work of the council. We've seen that work successfully in lots of other local authorities. I think it could work quite effectively here on the Isles of Scilly. So to do some work and thinking a bit about that. This Children's Pledge could be really ambitious, it could be really exciting. It's about the commitment, the accountability that the council have to its children and young people, those that are at risk of coming into care, but those children who could come into care at a future point. So and I think the exciting bit about the Children's Pledge, it may well spawn other things as well in terms of, so if you're identifying in terms of corporate parenting, what that offer is for children potentially coming into care, that inevitably will be looking at things around different service provision. We'll be looking at issues around accommodation. We'll be looking at apprenticeships, for instance. There's opportunities for you just to think more broadly about those. Can't we be doing some of those things more broadly for other young people? As well as meeting the needs of kids or children coming into care in the future. Partnership, at the heart of that, in terms of the building block approach that we're recommending, is you need to establish quickly your corporate parenting board or the panel that we've referred to, and we've provided quite a lot of information, a bit about how that could be constituted, and I think the second item is just to sign that off, hopefully, and for you to think a bit about who could be on that in terms of elected members. Partnership around also, supporting young people through to successfully to transition into adulthood, retaining young people on the island, and reinforcing and enabling prosperous environment, vibrant Isles of Scilly into the future.
May I ask a quick question? it's all very noble, and I completely approve. It's just that the second bullet point in partnership, ensuring all children looked after achieve their full potential in education, employment and training, it's not deliverable. I mean, if it was help all children, because, you know, it's over-promising, because in an ideal world, you can't actually do that.
Okay.
You can't ensure. It's just a small point.
No, that's a point. And I guess there'll be discussion really about whether that's an ambition or an aspiration. And I think it's more about that commitment really to try and achieve as much as you can in terms of enabling looked after children to meet their potential. Prevention as the third P is this linkage to the work of the Children and Young People's, the development of the Children and Young People's plan, looking at early help, looking at early intervention and family support on the island that could support young people being less at risk of coming into the care of the care of the council. So I think there's some good opportunities around that. We began to talk also quite a bit about what a child-friendly community on the Isles of Scilly could look like in that preventative sense as well. What are we all about? What are we trying to prevent? You know, how can we create a great environment for children and young people to grow up in? And then the final P is provision, which is very much about sufficiency for the future, because in developing your offer to young people potentially coming into care and also leaving care, that there are clear financial and resource implications in terms of doing that. So, for instance, if you would be clearly wanting to look at the possibility of a local foster carer recruitment campaign. What could that look like? What's the cost and the resource implications of some of those particular issues? So provision and sufficiency, being prepared for the future to meet those statutory requirements that were identified by Ofsted and others is pretty key. Right. Okay, so just to refine it down a bit more in terms of the implementation plan. Sorry, speed it up. Okay, I got to speed it up. I've just been given the cue, so I will speed it up. So what we really tried to do through the strategy was to, at the end particularly, to develop a clear roadmap for the future for you, with some key deliverables, key milestones and targets, if you like, in terms of different activities. So we hope that's helpful, and that's very much based on, I guess, what good corporate parenting looks like in other places and bringing to bear some of our experience. We also did some work on suggesting some, I guess, impact measures. How will you know that how will you know that the strategy is making a difference? And doing some thinking a bit about what some of those impact or outcome measures are concerned with and what they look like. Okay, I think I will leave it there. And I think the next step is really just to open it up for discussion and questions. Or any comments from you, Anne, if you wanted to.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anne, would you like to come in? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andy. I'm just going to pick up on Councillor Sims's comment, really, about it's not realistic. Well, I guess that's the challenge, really, in terms of the corporate parenting strategy and an absolute commitment. So we are talking about children who would become looked after and what we mean by that is in public care. So not children that are living in their families, but actually that makes all of us a corporate parent, and it puts the responsibility on us all to make sure that those children who are reliant on us actually do reach their full potential. And the full potential of one child is not the same as the full potential of another. So it does call to action without question, everybody involved in this, including education, health colleagues, and any other community safety and elected members, and of course the service on your behalf. So I just think it's really, really, really important. It's quite a strong statement, Councillor Sims, so I just wanted to give you some context back about that. I'm happy to open up the floor.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you and welcome, colleagues. And I'm really sorry you had to come on the boat. It's lovely to see you in the flesh, having worked with you already online. So thank you again. And welcome to our young people. And thank you very much for coming to see us today. And we hope you will continue to work with us in this very important area. Just a quick overview from me as your new lead member for children, if I may. As we discuss the next two agenda items, our work together will be really important to achieve the improvements that we need. The Council will also be continuing the work to find the funding to support the ambitious plans that we have for the future. The reports that we have in front of us in agenda items 10 and 11 outline our enhanced corporate parenting strategy and the way in which we will continue to work together with all our colleagues at the Five Islands Academy, all our partners, the community, and most importantly, our young people, to ensure that growing up on Scilly is a rewarding and enriching experience, as well as planning for any future roles that we may have as corporate parents. We aim to make this work very much a team effort, as you have outlined, and also as will be evidenced by the wide membership of our new overview panel. As members know, Ofsted in July 23 recognised issues that needed significant improvement in our children's services. So we developed an improvement plan. The work was going to take some time, but it is pleasing that our monitoring visits show that we are moving in the right direction, although none of us are complacent. I do believe all members, officers, and the whole council family and our community are committed to maintaining the independence of our children's services while recognising that we're a very small unitary authority that needs and is grateful for the outside support and help that we have been fortunate to have. I hope that we can all work towards a sustainable future for the improvements that we are all working together to make, and that the overview panel will demonstrate our ongoing commitment to this important work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, I was just going to ask one of the word clouds. It says, how could the council, the last word cloud, how the council and other services better respond to the wishes and feelings? And the main answer to that was tell. So there seems to be, and that was a response from the children, is that right?
Yeah, so that's tell us about things. So come back and talk to us.
Okay.
So the wanted mechanisms whereby they could hear back. So if there's been any consultation, they want you to tell them what the outcome of that consultation is. So it's not just going into the ether that they give us their views, but that we give them back.
Yeah.
That,
okay, that's really interesting. That's really good. Yeah, and welcome the aims and the work that's gone into it, working with children of the islands. That's really good. And just the actual deliverables as well. We're looking at a children and young people's plan in September next year, is that correct? How achievable is this? Is this aspirational as well, or is it achievable?
So I'm really pleased to say that we are already on starting the work on our children and young people's plan. Members will know that we have commissioned Fiona Fleming to do lots of the commissioning work. We've had some great work over the last few months with partners, really looking at what we've named as where's the Scilly pound across the islands, regardless of what partner it may be, and actually what's the resource for children and families, not only now but for future. And so we're just about to go into our second phase at the very, very tiny early stages of the Children and Young People's Plan. And our aim at Councillor Marcus is actually to do that by the end of the year. So that would be the latest in the date that's in the report. But we're really pleased about some of the progress we're making so far.
Cool. And the rest of the plan as well, I imagine that's going to be a report that comes to the overview panel to show progress on that. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford, please.
Thank you, Chair. As the lead member for adults, I'm particularly interested in the transition period for the children, and it was very interesting to hear the views of the children. They saw their future here in the islands. So that will mean trying to bring in some apprenticeships for children to be able to stay. That's good news for the islands as well, that our youngsters want to stay because they are our future. It's a
economy as well going forward.
Yes, of course.
And we'll support your economy.
Yes.
Going forward, I think Conservative important.
It does cause difficulties when it's the going away when they're 16, of course. It's not always suitable for all children to go away. If they go away and try it and then they don't like it and they come back. So it's very important to get as much as we can here, that they can continue their education virtually, maybe through technology. Am I right? Okay. And also very important to pick up the early help as well in the schools and the nurseries, and right from the word go, really, isn't it? Yes, I think we all appreciate the work that's been done here. We have had an interview, I think, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, thank you. It's just to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Really informative. Great notes here. Good to read. And I'm glad to hear that the statutory requirement will be met soon. Once the corporate strategy is in place and carers recruited, is it possible we will actively seek children who need care from other local authorities, or will we just be awaiting local need?
Yeah. And do you want to take that one? I can comment as well, but you go.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. So one of the pieces of work we've done a lot of thinking about is actually, you know, what a beautiful childhood children can have here. And there is a national shortage across this country of what we talk about, and the language you use is placements, not a very nice word. It means caring, safe homes for children where children can't live at home. You know, we haven't entered into that scenario yet on the Isles of Scilly. This strategy is first and foremost about our own children, absolutely. But actually recognising the warmth and the kindness in this community and the potential for us to reach out and be a provider of care for other children across the water that may well need that is something I think we shouldn't shy away from. I don't think it's our first priority at this point in time. I'm really, really grateful for the question, Councillor Blackwell, because I do think there is something about how we move forward, and particularly when we're thinking about, you know, it's really heartwarming when our children say, yeah, we're coming back home. You know, we want to grow up here. There is a huge piece of work for us to do collectively with your support as members to actually really develop a really good apprenticeship offer on these islands. We know for not all children want to go away, and the key is to get them to come back, but also to grow our children's population. And so there are many, many, many opportunities ahead of us. What we've got to do is we've got to walk before we can run, and this is the start of that.
Thank you. And just briefly, one last question. What was the age of the children who did the clouds? I'm just interested. I've got teenagers.
So the age of the young people that did the word clouds was between, I think, 11 and 15. And then we met with an older age group last week. So we had a focus group with a few 18, 19, 24-year-olds. So, yeah, so it was a good spread of ages, good mix of ages.
Thank you.
It was great, really, in terms of the numbers. You know, I think in the end we spoke to over 35 children, young people, really. For a small island, the proportion is really high. So that was great, and everyone wanted to help and support this important work. As I was saying earlier, it was great.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll just add on to the end of that. You know, I think the engagement piece of work with young people has been such an important platform. It started from the work we've done to get the Youth Hub up and running, and then our Quiet Youth Hub too, and then to really engage our young people. I think at council meetings, we often hear the voice of adults, really. I think what this does is it gives us a really good platform to think about how children can influence policy, procedure and future as well. So I'm really excited as the director that we managed to be able to do that. I'm eternally grateful for our young people that are sitting in council today.
And it's not just about corporate parenting. I think there is great opportunities for more involvement of children and young people around things that matter to them more broadly across the island. I think that's an opportunity. One thing I just wanted to reinforce, what we've done, I think, through the implementation plan in particular, is what we're calling a building block approach. To keep it very simple and specific, really, is about getting the foundations of the house in place now. So moving quickly on getting the corporate parenting board constituted, people on that, looking at the opportunities for engagement and participation through, you know, in terms of children and young people. And then from that, you know, looking at this local offer, delivering on some of the key aspects around the strategy that we've identified. So talk to action now, guys. Yeah, good opportunities for that, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
Yeah, I really welcome the report. A couple of comments from me. I think, first of all, it's really interesting the route you've taken talking to the children. I just wonder if there's synergies for other departments, like, for example, mine with environment and climate change, which I know certain young people are really interested in, and whether we can perhaps at a later date expand this and try and get children's views on a wider level of things, would be my first question. My second point would be, you said the whole word funding. So can, again, my horrible question, can we have assurance that the funding is in place, or a plan to get that funding is in place, please?
Okay, I'll take the first one. I'll let you take the second, if that's all right. I mean, the first one around using the opportunity of working alongside children and young people to look at other service areas in terms of what you were saying, I think is a great idea. And I think there is real opportunity to do that. You know, in other councils, they've done mystery shopping schemes, for instance, where they've got young people to use certain services beyond children's services, actually, to see how child or young person friendly they actually are, and then responding to the results.
Can I add to that within the implementation plan, you'll also see an action which is the development of a participation strategy. So that's how children and young people participate more widely in
council business. Yeah.
So it needs to be approached as a planned approach to how you're going to involve children and young people, because the last thing you want is to bombard them with everything that you're doing, but a planned approach is going to be really important. So that's why the strategy is part of the implementation plan.
I'll just take the question about funding. We always struggle, don't we? Partly because of our indices, really. But certainly the work that Russell and I are doing with the DFE around the implementation of care reforms and being able to think about what the compliance is of some of the initiatives, and this is one. It's a legally compliant, important moment for the Isles of Scilly, and we certainly are making very strong representation about the need to have some further support financially to be able to do the implementation plan, some of which will be delivered within business as usual, and then we'll be looking for some additional funding.
Thank you. Councillor Sims, please.
Well, clearly this report is primarily about children, but I think they could perhaps give some thought to tying it into some of the council's broader aspirations. If we want young people to come back here after tertiary education, they've got to be able to have somewhere to live. They have to be, the incentive to come back and get a job when you're getting sort of just a basic minimum wage is not there. So, we have lots of asks of government, but tying the children and what children need when they become young adults in their young families, because we have that offer over here now is appalling really for people. You know, you're 22, 23-year-old, you know, you've got want to get married, kids, etc. You're not earning that much. This place just isn't attractive, really. It's unaffordable. So just, you know, as I said before, some thought to tying this into the council's wider aspirations would be useful.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Yeah, do it.
Thank you. Councillor Marcus, please.
I just want to, Councillor Peacock wasn't a member then, but when we created the corporate plan, existing corporate plan, we did go into school and ask all secondary students to comment on that, and got comments from all the students there. So it has been we've been doing this before. It's really good to have a formal avenue for this and to embed the governance structures and the policy into all areas of the council rather than doing it piecemeal. But the corporate plan did involve the children of the Five Islands Academy as well.
Thank you. Anne?
And I think that's absolutely great. I think what we perhaps either did do in the past and let go of, or haven't or can do now, is actually from a children's services point of view, having an offer from a children's services point of view of really supporting our young people, making sure that, I absolutely agree with you, that their voice is heard when actually we are passing policy. It is an ambition, but it happens elsewhere. And if that happens really effectively elsewhere, and actually the strength of our young people here, and actually the smartness of them and their eagerness, I actually don't see how in future that can't happen here. But it is about children's services taking the reins on that and coming up with a really well-supported island council. There are lots of young people that are amazing and take part in the school consultation, but actually there's something about widening that too, so it's a partnership together really. So I really appreciate your comment, Dan.
Thank you. Councillor Grothick, did you propose the recommendations?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. And could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Peacock. All those in favour of the recommendations? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And I would like to take this opportunity of thanking our consultants and thanking Anne for all her work, and especially our pupils from Five Islands Academy for coming today and supporting all this work that has led to this report today. And I hope we as a council can now deliver on this report and the actions from it, and be a credit to our young people on these islands. So we will do our best. Thank you very much. We move on now to the last item on our agenda, which is linked obviously to this, and it's the formation of our overview panel. Again, Anne, thank you.
I'm just going to hand over to Catherine and Andy.
So the development of the board is really to ensure, again, that we're statutorily compliant. So you would need a corporate parenting board, both to meet the legislation and to meet the Ofsted requirements going forward. So whenever a local authority is inspected by Ofsted, they're required to see copies of both your corporate parenting strategy and minutes of your corporate parenting board. So they'll look at the last 3 sets of minutes. Sometimes they actually go and view the board in action. So we've called it the overview panel, the islands that care. And the reason for that is that it's obviously we don't have any children who are looked after as yet. but it's about developing and pushing forward the strategy, and it's about the accountability going back through that board. So it sets out who we think might be members of that board, and it includes a wide range of partners. It includes children and young people, and it includes potentially a couple of members. So I think the recommendation was that a few councillors would be nominated to sit on that panel with the Director of Children's Services as the chair.
And I
Thank
think
you
the
very much.
timetable is that the first board should happen in September.
Thank you. Anne?
Yeah, so you've had the recommended terms of reference for the overview panel. I know that myself and Councillor Marcus had a bit of a conversation around how governance works politically. Some really, really good points, and I'm sure he'll come in a second. But you know, approving the strategy is one thing. The overview panel is the how you do it, really. So it's in front of you today to agree the terms of reference. We'll get the panel set up, and just to be really clear, we will absolutely hold other statutory partners to account for their attendance, and that includes health and other colleagues.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I just sort of add quickly to that? One of the strengths here is that we quiz quite a lot the key partners about their commitment and willingness to be involved in the corporate parenting board, and you are pushing an open door. And that isn't, again, always the case. So some of those key partners in terms of health and the police saying yes, and they want to help and they think it's important.
Thank you. Councillor Grottick, please.
Thank you, Chair. As the report notes, the establishment of an overview panel is very much the beginning of a key piece of work to implement a strong corporate parenting strategy. And the wide breadth of membership, I think, is testament to the fact that this is so much a team effort that will continue to work together in the future. And I really welcome the inclusion of our young people in this overview panel. I'm really quite excited about it, I have to say. I think it's going to really move us forward in lots of directions. I don't want to stifle debate at all. I'm sure other members will have comment, but I would like to nominate Councillor Williams as our previous lead member for children to the panel, and Councillor Jeff White, who's also already been very much involved in some early conversations around this area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marcus, please.
Yeah, just in terms of governance, totally support creation of the board and support the idea that the governance structure of the board will take children's views into account and then feed back into the rest of the council's work. Notes there's talk about providing exemplars of work from other departments into the board to make sure that that these foundations are pushed through the council and built on. I just welcome it's always good that the governance committee of the council reviews all the external bodies that the council is responsible for and has members on. So we'll just add this to these terms of reference to that review, which would be ongoing through the year, if that's all right with people. And just a correction in the group membership. We don't have a director of housing. We have a director responsible for housing. So that might be just worth changing that. And I'd like to nominate Councillor Blackwell as well to the board.
Thank you. Councillor Mumford.
Yes, and I'd like to second Councillor Blackwell, and I'd also like to nominate Councillor Marcus.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, so I do think that Joel has some synergies with this being our vice chair as well. He's quite a strong person to have on that board. And I also have had a conversation with Jeff, so I know he's very interested in this area. So I would second Councillor Grottick's view of Joel and Jeff. I don't want to cause a political debate that goes on for hours. But.
Okay, well, we'll take them one by one. sorry, just one moment. Councillor Sims?
I think I should know this, but I don't. What is our QA service manager? Is it quality assurance? I just
Yeah, it's quality assurance, yeah, or yeah, I don't know whether you have a
I was
quality
just
assurance.
establishing whether we got one or not. I'm not sure.
So in our restructuring, we've got a strategic lead for quality assurance, partnerships and improvement, and it would be that role that's not in post at the moment. That will be the role that will be part of this.
Okay, thank you. Chief Executive?
Yeah, can I just come in and say and ask Anne, how many councillors are we looking for to be on? I mean, you know, it says, I think in the paper, 2. Does it have to be 2 or could it be more? Because there's 3 or 4 have been nominated. I just wondered before we...
So respectfully, I would ask for 2 councillors. I think that actually we're going to have young people as part of the panel, and we want to be able to make sure that we're careful about just the size of it and proportionality. So there's no reason why that elected members can't move around in a particular time period and share the role over time. But my ask would be for no more than 2.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roger, please.
Just with the business community member, just thinking with my other hat on with Visit Isles of Scilly, that I would be very happy to put Visit Isles of Scilly forward to be that overarching business community member. I would exclude myself to sit on the panel being a councillor as well, but I have a person within my team I think would be very good for that position.
Yeah, I think that's great, Councillor Woodruff. We really, and that's our link in around really developing proper partnerships, apprenticeships, I mean.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock, please.
Just for clarification on the in the document, it says lead member for children and then 2 councillors. Does that include, does lead member, you understand my question, is it therefore 3, 1 being the lead member?
That's a really good challenge and I really welcome it. I think because we've written it as the lead member and 2 members, I think that actually that's fine and we should do it that way. I think the lead member for children's has a particular role and then 2 other members I think is helpful.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Grottick?
Thank you. I was just going to ask for clarification of the same thing.
Okay, thank you. So, sorry, Councillor Legg.
I think it's really great that there is a suggestion of one of the off-island councillors taking the role, and I think that that's a really key thing to recognise, is that the off-islands are separate. Going forwards, obviously that might not be the case in the future, but I think in this instance I would be keen to support an off-island councillor in that role.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to have to do this individually because we've had, I think, 4 councillors proposed. So I'm going to take the first one. Sorry?
I can't think how we're going to do it.
Well, what I intend to do is to ask for a vote on each councillor. Is that not the best way?
Well, if you vote each one at a time, all you're going to ask. If you vote each one, all you're going to do is vote yes or no, isn't it? You could still get 4 yeses.
Could I ask which councillors have been nominated? I got lost.
We've been nominated nominated Councillor Williams, who was the previous lead member for children, as councillors will be aware, and he's also Vice Chair of Council. We've had a nomination from off-island Councillor White. We've had a nomination for Councillor Blackwell, and we've had a nomination for Councillor Marcus, as far as I'm aware.
I would love to take part, but I'm going to decline at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Chair, could I just propose that perhaps we just change it so we'd have the terms as 2 councillors from 3, and that way we've always got a spare, as it were. It saves having the debate just now, and then in time for the first meeting when it convenes, 2 out of the 3 could go forward.
I think that's a very good idea, Councillor Nixon. How do other councillors feel about that? Councillor Peacock?
I would very happily second that.
Yeah. Chief Executive?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. So we will have a vote then, please, on the 3 councillors that are standing who will rotate. So we're talking about Councillor Williams, we're talking about Councillor Blackwell, and we're talking about Councillor White. So could I have a proposer for those 3, please? That's Councillor Dean, seconded Councillor Peacock. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. So that is the last item on our agenda, and with that I will close the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.